He foolishly ended things with his beloved. 25 years later, the millionaire was stunned to see her working as a truck driver with a young man identical to him. He got closer and the desert sun beat down mercilessly on the cracked asphalt of Interstate 40, creating heat waves that danced like ghosts across the horizon. Thomas Grayson gripped the steering wheel of his black Mercedes S-Class, his knuckles white against the leather as he drove through the endless stretch of New Mexico highway. At 46, he was still striking, silver threading through his dark hair, piercing blue eyes that had closed million-dollar deals, and a jawline that spoke of old money and privilege. But today, those eyes held a haunted quality that no amount of wealth could cure. He'd been driving for 3 hours straight, fleeing from another suffocating board meeting in Albuquerque, where his real estate empire had expanded yet again. Another acquisition, another triumph that felt hollow in his chest. The compulsion to drive these desolate roads had become stronger over the years. An inexplicable pull that his therapist called displacement behavior. Thomas called it the only thing that kept him sane. The GPS chimed softly. Rest area in 1 mile. His fuel gauge hovered near empty. And despite his reluctance to stop, necessity won. The Desert Rose truck stop appeared like a mirage against the barren landscape. A weathered oasis of concrete and steel where travelers sought refuge from the unforgiving Southwest. Thomas pulled into the station, parking beside the diesel pumps where 18-wheelers dominated the landscape like mechanical dinosaurs. The air shimmered with heat and the acrid smell of exhaust, mixed with the distant aroma of coffee and fried food from the attached diner. He stepped out, his Italian leather shoes feeling foreign against the oil-stained concrete as he approached the pump. The rumble of a diesel engine caught his attention. A cherry-red Peterbilt truck was backing into the adjacent bay with practiced precision. The driver's door swung open, and Thomas's world tilted on its axis. A woman stepped down from the cab with fluid grace, her movements economical and confident. She was smaller than he remembered, but time had been kind to her features. At 44, Elena Brooks still possessed the same natural beauty that had captivated him in college. High cheekbones, expressive dark eyes, and that same cascade of chestnut hair, now pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore well-fitted jeans and a blue work shirt that spoke of honest labor, but she moved with an elegance that no amount of hardship could diminish. Thomas felt his breath catch in his throat. 25 years collapsed into a single moment, and he was 21 again, standing in the campus quad with his heart hammering against his ribs. "Elena," he whispered, though she was too far away to hear. She hadn't noticed him yet, focused on checking her truck's systems with the methodical attention of someone who'd learned that details meant survival. But then another figure emerged from the passenger side, and Thomas's legs nearly gave out beneath him. The young man was tall and lean, moving with an easy confidence that struck Thomas like a physical blow. It was like looking into a mirror from 25 years ago. The same dark hair, the same blue eyes, even the same way of tilting his head when concentrating. The resemblance was so striking it was almost supernatural. "Hey, Mom, you want me to grab us some coffee while you handle the fuel log?" The young man's voice carried across the lot, and Thomas heard his own vocal inflections echoing from a generation past. Elena looked up and smiled, that same radiant smile that had once made Thomas believe he could conquer the world. "Thanks, sweetheart. Get me the usual, and grab some of those protein bars too. We've got a long haul to Phoenix." Thomas stood frozen, watching this intimate exchange between mother and son. The pieces of a puzzle he'd never known existed began falling into place with devastating clarity. The timing, the resemblance, the way Elena had vanished from his life without explanation. It all made horrifying sense. The young man, Noah, he'd called himself, headed toward the convenience store, passing within 10 feet of Thomas. Up close, the resemblance was even more pronounced. Same strong jawline, same determined stride, same unconscious habit of running his hand through his hair when thinking. This wasn't just coincidence or wishful thinking. This was his son. Thomas's chest tightened as the magnitude of what he was seeing hit him. For 25 years, he'd had a son who was now a man, who'd grown up without ever knowing his father, who'd been shaped by hardship and love in ways Thomas could only imagine. Elena finished with the fuel pump and turned toward the store. That's when their eyes met across the lot, and the world seemed to stop spinning. Her face went pale, then flushed with a mixture of emotions: shock, pain, and something that might have been carefully controlled rage. She walked toward him with measured steps, her expression hardening with each footfall. Thomas Grayson. His name fell from her lips like a curse. 25 years, and you show up at a truck stop in the middle of nowhere. Elena. He struggled to find words that could bridge the chasm between them. I didn't know. I had no idea you were pregnant. She finished the sentence with brutal efficiency. No, you wouldn't know. You made it very clear that our worlds were incompatible before you ran off to Harvard to play with Daddy's money. The words hit him like physical blows. He remembered saying them, remembered the cold calculation that had driven him to break her heart before his family could do it for him. But he'd never known about the pregnancy, never suspected that his cowardice had cost him so much more than just the woman he'd loved. Elena, if I had known, you would have what? Married the poor girl to legitimize your mistake. Her voice was low but sharp as a blade. Don't insult us both with pretty lies. Noah emerged from the store, coffee cups in hand, and immediately sensed the tension. His eyes darted between his mother and the well-dressed stranger, protective instincts kicking in. Mom, everything okay? Thomas found himself staring at his son, and felt 25 years of missed birthdays, school plays, and bedtime stories crash down on him like an avalanche. You must be Noah, he said, his voice barely steady. Noah's eyes narrowed slightly. Do I know you? No, Elena said quickly, stepping slightly between them. He's no one important, just someone from a very long time ago. The dismissal cut deeper than any knife could have. Thomas wanted to scream, to grab Noah and tell him everything, to somehow compress 25 years of longing into a single moment of recognition. Instead, he simply said, I'm Thomas. Noah studied him with those familiar blue eyes, and Thomas could see the wheels turning. The resemblance was too strong to ignore, the timing too coincidental. Mom, who is this guy really? Someone who lost the right to know you a long time ago, Elena said, her voice brittle as ice. Come on, we need to get back on the road. She turned to leave, but Thomas couldn't let her go. Not again. Not now that he knew what he'd lost. Elena, please, we need to talk. She paused, not turning around. We had our chance to talk 25 years ago. You chose Harvard and your precious family reputation instead. She looked back over her shoulder, and Thomas saw tears threatening in her eyes. Some choices can't be undone, Thomas. Some damage can't be repaired. They walked away, leaving Thomas standing alone in the desert heat, watching his son disappear into the cab of a truck he'd never seen before. The diesel engine roared to life, and the red Peterbilt pulled away, taking with it the family he'd never known he'd wanted. As the truck disappeared into the heat haze, Thomas pulled out his phone with shaking hands. He had resources, connections, ways to find people who didn't want to be found. For the first time in 25 years, he had a purpose beyond building his empire. He had a son to find, and a lifetime of mistakes to somehow make right. 25 years earlier, Harvard University, the autumn leaves crunched beneath their feet as Thomas and Elena walked hand in hand through Harvard Yard. At 21, Thomas Grayson was everything a young woman might dream of. Handsome, intelligent, from one of Boston's most prominent families. But it was the way he looked at Elena, like she was the only person who mattered in his carefully orchestrated world, that had stolen her heart. My father's expecting me at dinner tonight, Thomas said, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. Another networking opportunity with the Vanderbilts. Elena laughed, that musical sound that never failed to make his chest tighten. Poor little rich boy, forced to eat caviar and discuss stock portfolios. Mock me all you want, he grinned, pulling her closer. But someday I'm going to give you everything. Big house, fancy cars, more dresses than you know what to do with. I don't need fancy things. Thomas. She stopped walking and faced him, her dark eyes serious. I just need you. He kissed her then, soft and tender, tasting like coffee and promises. Around them, other students hurried to classes, but Thomas felt like they existed in their own perfect bubble. Elena was a scholarship student, working 2 jobs to afford textbooks, while he worried about which BMW to drive to fraternity parties. But when they were together, none of that mattered. I love you, Elena Brooks. He whispered against her lips. I love you too. You impossible man. 3 months later, Elena stood in the cramped bathroom of her dorm, staring at the plastic test in her trembling hands. 2 pink lines stared back at her, unchanging no matter how many times she blinked. Pregnant. The word echoed in her mind like a bell tolling. She'd practiced the conversation a dozen times in the mirror. Thomas would be shocked, of course, but he'd also be thrilled. They'd talked about the future, about marriage after graduation, about the life they'd build together. This would just accelerate their timeline. She found him in the library, buried in business law textbooks. His face lit up when he saw her, that boyish grin that had first caught her attention in economics class. Hey, beautiful. What brings you to my fortress of academic suffering? Thomas, we need to talk. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she sat beside him. Somewhere private. 20 minutes later, they sat on a bench overlooking the Charles River. Elena took a deep breath and placed the pregnancy test in his hands. I'm pregnant. Thomas, 8 weeks. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Thomas stared at the test, his face cycling through emotions too quickly for her to read. When he finally looked up, his eyes were different, distant, calculating. Are you sure? I've taken 3 tests. I'm sure. He set the test down carefully, as if it might explode. Elena, this changes everything. I know it's earlier than we planned, but no. The word was sharp, final. You don't understand my family. They have expectations, plans. This would destroy everything I've worked for. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. What are you saying? Thomas stood and began pacing, his hands running through his hair in that familiar gesture she'd always found endearing. Now it just looked frantic. My father's already arranged a position for me at Morrison & Associates after graduation. I'm supposed to marry Madeline Harper. Her family's been in business with ours for generations. It's all been planned since we were children. Planned. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. What about us? What about what we've talked about? That was different. That was college. He couldn't meet her eyes. This is real life, Elena. Our worlds are incompatible. My future is at Harvard Law. Then the family firm, I can't what? Can't be with someone beneath your social status. Can't love someone who doesn't come with a trust fund. It's not that simple. He finally looked at her, and she saw something that broke her heart. Relief. Relief that he had an excuse to run. Elena, I care about you, but this baby, it would ruin everything. My family would disown me. I'd lose my inheritance, my position, my entire future. Elena stood slowly, her legs unsteady. So what are you suggesting? There are options, clinics, I could pay for. The slap echoed across the water. Thomas stumbled backward, his hand flying to his reddening cheek. Don't you dare! Elena's voice was ice and fire. Don't you dare suggest that I kill our child because it's inconvenient for your precious career. Elena, please, just think about this rationally. Get away from me! Tears streamed down her face, but her voice remained steady. Get away from me, and don't ever come near me again. She turned and walked away, leaving Thomas standing by the river with the pregnancy test at his feet. She never saw him again. Present day, Phoenix, Arizona. Thomas sat in his home office, a scotch growing warm in his hand, as he stared at the report his private investigator had compiled. 48 hours since the encounter at the truck stop, and he now knew more about Elena Brooks's life than he had in 25 years. The pictures spread across his mahogany desk told a story of struggle and determination. Elena at 19, working as a seamstress in a Boston factory while 8 months pregnant. Elena at 25, cleaning hotel rooms with toddler Noah playing quietly in the corner. Elena at 30, studying for her commercial driver's license while Noah did homework at a diner table. Damn it, Thomas whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Every photo was a testament to his cowardice, to the life his son had lived because of choices made by a scared 21-year-old boy. His phone buzzed. Madeline's picture appeared on the screen, his wife of 20 years. Chosen by family arrangement rather than love, he let it go to voicemail. The investigator's report was thorough. Elena had never married, never even had a serious relationship that lasted more than a few months. Noah had excelled in school despite their financial struggles. earning a partial scholarship to community college before choosing to join his mother on the road. They were a team, the report noted, inseparable and fiercely protective of each other. Thomas's throat tightened as he read about Noah's childhood. Birthday parties at truck stops when they couldn't afford to go home. Christmas presents bought from gas station convenience stores. A boy who'd grown up thinking his father was a coward who'd abandoned them before birth. Which, Thomas realized with crushing clarity, wasn't far from the truth. Mr. Grayson, his assistant's voice came through the intercom. Mrs. Grayson is here to see you. Before he could respond, Madeline swept into the office, her perfectly styled blonde hair and designer dress, a stark contrast to the working-class images scattered across his desk. She was beautiful in the way that money could buy. Maintained, polished, cold. Thomas, you missed dinner with the Harrisons again. Her eyes fell on the photographs, and her expression shifted from annoyance to sharp interest. What's all this? Thomas gathered the pictures quickly, but not before Madeline caught sight of Elena and Noah. Work. Just background checks for a new development. Background checks that make you look like someone died. She moved closer, her predatory instincts kicking in. You've been distracted for weeks. Thomas, more than usual. It's nothing that concerns you. Everything about you concerns me. We're partners in this marriage, remember? Even if it's not the kind that includes passion. Their marriage had been exactly what his father had planned. A merger of families and fortunes. They'd found companionship, if not love. Respect, if not desire. But Thomas had always known that Madeline's loyalty extended only as far as their mutual benefit. I ran into someone from college, he said finally, knowing she'd keep pushing until she got some answer. It brought back some memories. Madeline's smile was sharp. Anyone I should be worried about. Ancient history. She studied him for a long moment, those calculating green eyes missing nothing. Well, try to keep your ancient history from interfering with our present. The Morrison deal closes next week, and we can't afford any distractions. After she left, Thomas sat alone with the photos again. Somewhere out there, Elena and Noah were probably settling down for the night in some truck stop, sharing stories and dreams in the cab of their rig. A family he'd never been part of, a love he'd thrown away for money and status that now felt hollow as dust. He picked up his phone and dialed the investigator. I need you to find them, he said when the man answered. I need to know their exact location at all times. Sir, that's going to be difficult. They move constantly, and Mrs. Brooks seems to avoid patterns. I don't care what it costs. I need to find my son. The words hung in the air long after he'd hung up the phone. His son, for the first time in 25 years. Thomas Grayson had something worth fighting for. The Iron Trail Logistics warehouse sat like a concrete fortress on the outskirts of El Paso, its corrugated metal walls baking under the relentless Texas sun. Elena downshifted as she guided the Peterbilt through the security gate, the familiar weight of the trailer behind her, a comfort after 25 years on the road. Beside her, Noah studied the delivery manifest with the focused attention she'd taught him since he was old enough to read. Looks like we're hauling electronics to Phoenix again, Noah said, running his finger down the inventory list. Same route we did 3 weeks ago, Mr. Doyle sure likes his patterns. Elena's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Travis Doyle had been running Iron Trail for 5 years now, and while the pay was better than most outfits, something about the man made her skin crawl. He was too smooth, too friendly, and he asked too many questions about their routes and timing. Just remember what I've always told you, she said, backing the rig up to loading Dock 7 with practiced precision. We haul what's on the manifest. We don't ask questions about what we don't see, and we keep our eyes on the road. Noah had heard this speech 100 times, but he sensed something different in his mother's tone today. She'd been distant since their encounter at the Desert Rose truck stop 3 days ago, lost in thoughts she wouldn't share. He'd tried asking about the well-dressed stranger, but Elena had shut down every attempt at conversation with a firmness that brooked no argument. Mom, about that guy at the truck stop. Drop it, Noah. Elena's voice was sharp enough to cut steel. Some things are better left buried. The loading dock doors rumbled open, revealing Travis Doyle's imposing figure silhouetted against the warehouse lights. At 45, he was built like a linebacker gone soft around the edges, with graying hair slicked back and eyes that never seemed to miss anything. His smile was all teeth and no warmth. Elena, beautiful, Right on time as always. Travis approached the cab as they climbed down, his gaze lingering on Elena in a way that made Noah's fists clench, and young Noah, looking more like his mama every day. "Mr. Doyle?" Elena replied coolly, maintaining professional distance. "We're ready to load and get back on the road." "Not so fast, sweetheart. Come into the office first. We need to discuss some route changes." Elena exchanged a glance with Noah. Route changes were unusual, especially for runs they'd done dozens of times. "What kind of changes?" "The kind we discussed privately." Travis's smile never wavered, but something predatory flickered in his eyes. "Noah can supervise the loading. Make sure the boys treat your rig right." In the office, Travis poured himself a scotch despite the early hour and gestured for Elena to sit. The room reeked of stale cigarettes and cheap cologne, decorated with pictures of trucks and half-dressed women that made Elena's skin crawl. "Elena, you've been one of my best drivers for 3 years now. Always on time. Never any problems with cargo. Never asking the wrong questions." He leaned against his desk, studying her over his glass. "That kind of reliability is rare in this business. I do my job. That's what you pay me for." "Indeed. Which is why I'm offering you something special. There's a new route opening up. Phoenix to Tucson, then back to El Paso. Same cargo, same time frame, but triple the usual pay." Elena's internal alarms began ringing. Triple pay meant either extreme danger or extreme illegality. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just requires drivers I can trust absolutely. Drivers who understand that discretion is the most valuable commodity in this business. And if I'm not interested..." Travis's smile faded slightly. "Oh, I think you'll be interested, see, Elena. You and Noah have become valuable assets to Iron Trail. It would be unfortunate if economic circumstances forced you to look for work elsewhere, especially with Noah's college fund to think about." The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. Elena had seen other drivers disappear from the Iron Trail roster for asking too many questions or refusing the wrong jobs. In a business where reputation was everything, Travis had the power to make sure they never worked for a legitimate outfit again. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "Don't think too long. The window for this opportunity won't stay open forever." Outside, Noah was supervising the loading crew with an efficiency that would have made Elena proud under different circumstances. The cargo looked legitimate, sealed electronics boxes with proper shipping labels, but Elena noticed the crew's nervous energy, the way they avoided eye contact, the whispered conversations that stopped when she approached. "Everything loaded properly?" she asked Noah as they prepared to leave. "Yeah, but Mom, something feels off about this whole thing. The cargo's heavier than the manifest says," and one of the boxes was making a weird humming sound. Elena's blood ran cold. Electronic devices didn't hum unless they were powered, and shipping electronics powered was both dangerous and highly irregular. "Did you mention it to anyone?" I started to ask one of the loaders, but he looked terrified and walked away. As they pulled out of the Iron Trail compound, Elena made a mental note to start looking for other work. Whatever Travis was hauling, it wasn't worth the risk to Noah's safety or their freedom. The drive to Phoenix passed in tense silence, both of them aware that their cargo might be more than it seemed. Elena took back roads and avoided way stations, a precaution that had become second nature working for Iron Trail. They made good time, delivering to a nondescript warehouse where the receiving crew seemed more interested in speed than proper paperwork. It was on the return trip that their worst fears materialized. The roadblock appeared without warning on a stretch of empty highway 30 miles east of Phoenix. State police cars formed a barrier across both lanes, their red and blue lights painting the desert in carnival colors. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs as she brought the rig to a stop. "License and registration," the trooper said, his hand resting casually on his service weapon. "We're conducting random cargo inspections today." Elena handed over the documents with steady hands, but she could feel Noah's tension beside her. They'd done nothing wrong, officially, but experience had taught her that innocence meant nothing if you were hauling for the wrong people. "Step out of the vehicle, please, both of you." They watched from the shoulder as drug dogs circled their trailer, the animal's excited barking confirming Elena's worst suspicions. When the dogs sat and whined at specific points along the trailer walls, the troopers exchanged meaningful looks. "Ma'am, we're going to need to inspect your cargo." The search revealed exactly what Elena had feared. false panels in the trailer walls concealing packages of white powder. Enough cocaine to put them both away for life. Noah's face went white as realization hit him. "That's not ours," he said, his voice cracking with panic. "We don't know anything about that." "Son, that's what they all say." The lead trooper was already reaching for his handcuffs when his radio crackled to life. "Unit 7, stand down. We have new orders from command." Elena watched in amazement as the troopers suddenly became apologetic, explaining that they'd received intelligence about a different vehicle matching their description. The drugs were resealed, the false panels replaced, and within an hour they were back on the road with profuse apologies and warnings to drive safely. "Mom, what the hell just happened?" Noah's hands were still shaking as they merged back onto the highway. "We should have been arrested. They had us dead to rights." Elena gripped the steering wheel tighter, a terrible suspicion forming in her mind. Someone with serious power and influence had intervened on their behalf. Someone who knew exactly where they were and what they were carrying. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Consider this a one-time favor. We need to talk. TG." Thomas Grayson, the man she'd spent 25 years trying to forget, had just saved them from a life sentence. And now he wanted to talk. Elena felt the carefully constructed walls around her heart beginning to crack. "Mom," Noah was studying her face with concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Maybe I have," she whispered, staring at the text message that changed everything. "Maybe I have." Behind them, the roadblock was already being dismantled, leaving no trace that they'd ever been stopped. But Elena knew this was just the beginning. Whatever game Travis Doyle was playing, they were now pieces on the board whether they wanted to be or not. And Thomas Grayson, the man who'd once broken her heart and abandoned their unborn child, had just saved their lives. The Blue Moon Diner sat like a beacon of fluorescent light against the dark New Mexico highway, its neon sign flickering intermittently in the desert night. Elena pulled the Peterbilt into the truck parking area, her hands trembling slightly as she shut off the engine. The text message from Thomas had been followed by another with specific coordinates and a simple request. "Please, one conversation. That's all I ask." Noah had been unusually quiet since the roadblock incident, stealing glances at his mother when he thought she wasn't looking. The near arrest had shaken him, but Elena could see something else working behind his eyes. The same analytical mind that had earned him straight A's despite their nomadic lifestyle was putting pieces together. "Mom, we need to talk about what happened back there," Noah said as they walked toward the diner. "Cops don't just let people go when they find drugs in their truck. Someone made a call." Elena pushed through the glass doors without responding, the familiar smell of coffee and fried food washing over her. The diner was nearly empty at this hour. Just a few truckers nursing coffee at the counter and a waitress who looked like she'd been working since the Carter administration. They chose a corner booth near the back, and Elena ordered coffee while Noah opted for a Coke and pie. The normalcy of the ritual felt surreal after the day's events. "The person who helped us," Noah continued, stirring sugar into his Coke absently. "It was that guy from the truck stop, wasn't it, Thomas something?" "Noah?" "No, Mom. I'm 25 years old. I've been asking about my father my entire life, and you've always shut me down. But I'm not a kid anymore." His voice was steady but determined. "That man looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. And the way you reacted, I've never seen you that rattled by anyone." Elena stared into her coffee cup, the dark surface reflecting the diner's harsh lighting. 25 years of carefully constructed lies were crumbling around her. She'd always known this day would come, but she'd hoped for more time, more preparation. "His name is Thomas Grayson," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. And, before Elena could answer, the diner's bell chimed and Thomas walked in. Even in jeans and a simple button-down shirt, he carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to commanding rooms full of powerful people. His eyes found theirs immediately, and Elena felt that familiar flutter in her chest that she'd spent decades trying to forget. Thomas approached their table hesitantly, as if he were walking through a minefield. "Elena, Noah," he looked directly at his son, and Elena saw 25 years of wonder and regret flash across his features. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "I didn't agree to anything," Elena said sharply. "But since you apparently have the power to make felony drug charges disappear, I figured I owed you a conversation." Thomas slid into the booth across from them. And Noah found himself staring at a face that was disturbingly familiar. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. The same bone structure, the same eyes, even the same unconscious habit of running fingers through hair when nervous. "You're my father," Noah said. It wasn't a question. The words hit Thomas like a physical blow. His son, had figured it out on his own. "Yes," he said simply. "I am." Elena's coffee cup rattled against the saucer as she set it down. "Noah, maybe you should..." "Should what?" "Leave so you two can have another private conversation that affects my entire life." Noah's voice was rising, drawing glances from the other patrons. "I think I've been kept in the dark long enough." Thomas leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly on the table. "Noah, I want you to know that I didn't know about you. If I had known your mother was pregnant, you would have what?" Elena's voice was ice. "Married me out of obligation, thrown some money at the problem and hoped it would go away. I would have done the right thing," Thomas said. But even as the words left his mouth, he wasn't sure he believed them. The 21-year-old version of himself had been weak, selfish, controlled by family expectations and social pressures. Noah looked between his parents, seeing the pain and anger that had festered for a quarter-century. "So let me get this straight. You two were together in college. Mom got pregnant, and you just left. It's more complicated than that," Thomas began. "No, it's really not." Noah's voice was deadly quiet. "You abandoned a pregnant woman because it was inconvenient for your career plans. And Mom, you never told me because what? You were protecting me from the truth that my father is a coward." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Elena felt tears threatening for the first time in years. "Noah, I was trying to protect you from being hurt by someone who didn't want you." "Didn't want me?" Noah laughed bitterly. "At least give me the credit of making that decision for myself." Thomas watched his son's anger with a mixture of pride and devastation, even furious. Noah was impressive, articulate, passionate, unafraid to confront uncomfortable truths. Elena had raised an extraordinary young man, and Thomas had played no part in it. "You're right to be angry," Thomas said. "At both of us. Your mother was trying to protect you, and I was a selfish kid who made the worst decision of his life. But Noah, I want you to know that not a day has passed in 25 years that I haven't regretted what I did." "Really?" "Because it looks like you've done pretty well for yourself." Noah's research skills had kicked in the moment he'd learned Thomas's full name. Grayson Development Corporation, net worth somewhere north of $500 million, beautiful wife, beautiful houses, beautiful life. Doesn't look like you've suffered much. The observation was more accurate than Noah knew. Thomas's material success had been hollow, a desperate attempt to fill a void he'd never understood until 3 days ago. "Money doesn't fix everything," Thomas said quietly. "It doesn't fix the biggest mistake you've ever made." "And what exactly do you want from us now?" Elena asked. "Forgiveness? A relationship? Or are you just here to ease your guilty conscience before you disappear again?" Before Thomas could answer, his phone buzzed with an urgent message from his security team. His face paled as he read the text. "What is it?" Elena asked, recognizing the look of someone receiving bad news. "Iron Trail Logistics is under federal investigation," Thomas said, looking directly at Noah. "They've been using their drivers to transport drugs across state lines for at least 2 years. The DEA is planning coordinated raids tomorrow morning." Noah's face went white. "How do you know that?" "Because I have people watching out for you. Both of you." Thomas's voice was steady but urgent. "Elena, whatever you do, don't go back to that compound, and don't answer any calls from Travis Doyle." "I don't understand," Noah said. "If they're criminals, why did the cops let us go today?" "Because I made some calls. Had some favors called in. But that kind of intervention only works once, and it won't protect you from federal charges if they decide you were willing participants." Elena felt the world tilting around her. "Willing participants we didn't know. It doesn't matter what you knew. You've been hauling drugs for months, maybe years. The DEA doesn't distinguish between willing and unwilling mules. The implications crash down on them like an avalanche. Their livelihood, their freedom, their entire future hung in the balance. And the only person who could help them was the man who'd abandoned them 25 years ago." "Why are you helping us?" Noah asked, his anger temporarily overwhelmed by confusion. Thomas looked directly into his son's eyes, those familiar blue eyes that mirrored his own. "Because you're my son. Because I've already lost 25 years with you. And I'll be damned if I lose you to a prison cell because I wasn't there to protect you." Noah stared at his father for a long moment, processing emotions he couldn't name. Finally, he turned to Elena. "Mom, is it true? About Iron Trail?" Elena thought about the nervous energy at the loading dock, the heavier-than-listed cargo, the humming boxes, all the signs she'd ignored because she needed the job. "Yes," she whispered. "I think it is." The three of them sat in silence as the magnitude of their situation sank in. Outside, the desert wind howled against the diner windows, and Elena couldn't shake the feeling that their old life was disappearing as surely as sand in a storm. "So, what do we do now?" Noah asked. Thomas reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of touching his son's. "Now we figure out how to keep you both safe. And maybe, if you'll let me, we start learning how to be a family." The FBI field office in Phoenix buzzed with the controlled chaos of a major operation in motion. Agent Sarah Martinez spread crime scene photos across the conference table while her team prepared for the coordinated raids on Iron Trail Logistics. The investigation had been building for 18 months, and they were finally ready to close the net on one of the Southwest's most sophisticated drug trafficking operations. "Travis Doyle has been smart," Agent Martinez explained to the assembled task force. "He uses legitimate freight companies as fronts, recruiting drivers who have no idea they're transporting contraband. Classic compartmentalization. The drivers stay clean. He stays protected." The photos showed trucks, warehouses, and surveillance shots of various drivers. Agent Martinez paused when she reached Elena and Noah's file. "These two are interesting. Elena Brooks and her son Noah. They've been running routes for Iron Trail for 3 years. But something happened yesterday that doesn't fit the pattern." She clicked to surveillance footage from the roadblock. They were stopped with approximately 50 kilos of pure cocaine in their trailer. Should have been an open and shut case. Then suddenly, orders came down from Washington to release them. "Washington?" Agent Rivera looked up from his laptop. "What kind of orders?" "The kind that come with signatures I don't question. But it tells me someone with serious juice is protecting these two. Which means they're either way more important than they look, or someone's about to become very desperate." Meanwhile, Thomas paced his hotel suite in Albuquerque, his phone pressed to his ear as he spoke with his head of security. The federal raids were hours away, and he needed Elena and Noah as far from Iron Trail as possible. "Sir, we've confirmed Mrs. Brooks and her son are at a truck stop outside Flagstaff," his security chief reported. "Our surveillance team says they haven't moved in 6 hours." "Good. Make sure they stay put until this is over." Thomas rubbed his temples, fighting off a stress headache. "Any word on Doyle's movements?" "That's where it gets interesting. Our sources say he's been making calls all night, trying to track down the Brooks woman. Seems he's not happy about yesterday's roadblock." Thomas's blood ran cold. If Travis suspected Elena and Noah had cooperated with law enforcement, their lives were in immediate danger. Drug traffickers didn't leave loose ends, especially ones that could identify their entire operation. "Double the protection detail. I want someone watching them every second." As he hung up, his phone immediately rang again. Madeline's name appeared on the screen, and Thomas reluctantly answered. "Where are you?" His wife's voice was sharp with irritation. "You missed the charity gala last night, and the Hendersons are expecting us for brunch. I'm handling a business emergency." "What kind of business emergency requires you to disappear for days without explanation?" There was something different in Madeline's tone, a calculated quality that set Thomas on edge. "Thomas, we've been married for 20 years. I know when you're lying." "Madeline, not now." "It's about that woman in the photographs, isn't it? The one from your college days." Her voice turned silky. "Dangerous. I did some research after our conversation. Elena Brooks. Quite the tragic figure. Single mother, struggling to make ends meet. And her son Noah. Such a striking resemblance to you." Thomas felt ice form in his veins. "Madeline, what are you talking about?" "Oh, Thomas, did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? 25 years old, looks exactly like you, and his mother just happens to be your college girlfriend. Even I'm not that naive." The line went dead, leaving Thomas staring at his phone in horror. Madeline knew about Noah. Worse, she knew Thomas cared enough to risk everything to protect them. In their marriage of convenience, that knowledge was a loaded weapon. At the truck stop outside Flagstaff, Elena sat in the diner nursing her fourth cup of coffee while Noah tried to make sense of their situation. The revelation about Thomas being his father had left him reeling, but the threat from Iron Trail made personal issues feel secondary. "Mom, we can't keep running forever," Noah said, pushing his untouched sandwich around his plate. "If Thomas is right about the investigation, we need to cooperate with the FBI. And tell them what? That we've been unknowingly transporting drugs for 3 years. That we're either criminals or idiots." Elena's voice was bitter. "Either way, we're finished. Not if we help them catch the real criminals." Elena studied her son's face, seeing determination mixed with naivety. At 25, Noah still believed in justice and doing the right thing. 3 years on the road with Travis Doyle had taught Elena that the world was more complicated than that. "You don't understand how this works," she said gently. "People like us don't get to be heroes. We get to be scapegoats." Noah's phone buzzed with a text message. His face paled as he read it. "What is it?" Elena asked. "It's from Mr. Doyle." Noah showed her the screen. "He wants us to come in for an emergency run. Says it's worth triple overtime and we need to leave immediately." Elena felt every instinct screaming danger. "Absolutely not. We're not going anywhere near that place. But what if he gets suspicious? What if he thinks we're cooperating with the police?" Before Elena could answer, a black SUV pulled into the parking lot. Travis Doyle stepped out, flanked by 2 men Elena didn't recognize. They moved with the predatory grace of people accustomed to violence. "Too late," Elena whispered. "He's already suspicious." Travis entered the diner with his trademark smile, but his eyes were cold as winter. "Elena, sweetheart, been looking all over for you." He slid into their booth uninvited, his companions taking positions near the exits. "Heard you had some trouble on the highway yesterday." "Nothing we couldn't handle," Elena replied carefully. "I'm sure, but see, here's the thing that's got me confused." Travis leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conversational whisper. "My sources tell me you were stopped with a significant amount of product in your trailer, product that should have resulted in immediate arrest. Yet here you are, free as birds." Noah started to speak, but Elena silenced him with a look. "Now I'm a reasonable man," Travis continued. "I understand that sometimes law enforcement makes mistakes, but what I can't understand is how 2 small-time truckers managed to walk away from federal drug charges. That kind of miracle requires serious connections." "We don't know what you're talking about," Elena said. "Don't you?" Travis's smile turned predatory. "See, I think someone's been making phone calls on your behalf. Someone with enough juice to make problems disappear, and that makes me very nervous. Because nervous people in my business tend to make poor decisions." One of Travis's men stepped closer to their table, his jacket falling open to reveal the butt of a pistol. The message was clear. "So here's what's going to happen," Travis continued. "You're going to take one more run for me, a special delivery that requires absolute discretion, and if everything goes smoothly, we'll all part ways as friends." "And if we refuse?" Noah asked, his voice steadier than Elena had expected. Travis's smile widened. "Son, you're young, so let me explain something about my business. There are only 2 kinds of people, assets and liabilities. As long as you're useful, you're assets. The moment you become liabilities." He didn't need to finish the threat. Elena understood perfectly. They were trapped between federal investigators and drug traffickers, with nowhere to run and no one to trust except the man who'd abandoned them 25 years ago. "We'll need details about the run," Elena said finally. "Smart girl, tomorrow night, Phoenix to Juarez. Special cargo, special route, and Elena." Travis stood, straightening his jacket. "This time, there won't be any miraculous interventions. My people will be watching every mile." After he left, Elena and Noah sat in stunned silence. The diner felt smaller suddenly, the fluorescent lights harsher. They were completely alone except for Thomas's surveillance team, who couldn't protect them from a choice between cooperation and death. "Mom?" Noah said quietly. "I think we need to call Thomas." Elena nodded, her hands shaking as she reached for her phone. The man she'd spent 25 years hating had become their only hope for survival. The irony wasn't lost on her. but irony was a luxury she could no longer afford. Outside, Travis's SUV disappeared into the desert night, leaving only dust and the promise of violence to come. The Ritz-Carlton in Scottsdale gleamed like a jewel against the Arizona mountains, its manicured grounds a sharp contrast to the desert wilderness beyond. Madeline Grayson sat by the infinity pool, her perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around a crystal glass of champagne, her mind working through the details of what she'd discovered about her husband's secret family. 20 years of marriage had taught her that information was currency. And she'd just struck gold. Thomas's desperation to protect Elena and Noah revealed a vulnerability she'd never seen before, one that could be exploited to devastating effect. Her phone buzzed with a message from the private investigator she'd hired. More photos, more details about the Brooks family's current predicament. The irony was delicious. Thomas's bastard son was caught up in a federal drug investigation, and her husband was using his considerable resources to keep them safe. Dangerous game you're playing. Thomas, she murmured, scrolling through surveillance photos of the truck stop confrontation with Travis Doyle. A shadow fell across her lounge chair. She looked up to see a man in an expensive suit, his face scarred by what looked like an old knife wound. His smile was all predator. "Mrs. Grayson, my name is Marcus Webb. I represent certain business interests that might align with yours." Madeline set down her champagne, her pulse quickening. She hadn't expected her inquiries about Iron Trail logistics to attract this kind of attention. "I'm not sure what you mean." Marcus sat in the adjacent chair without invitation, his movements fluid and dangerous. "Your husband has been making waves in some very still waters. My associates are concerned about his humanitarian efforts. Thomas has always been prone to misguided charity work. This isn't charity. Mrs. Grayson, this is personal, and personal emotions make people unpredictable." Marcus studied her with eyes like chips of black ice. "We understand you might be interested in ensuring your husband's focus returns to more appropriate channels." Madeline felt a thrill of excitement mixed with fear. She was being recruited for something that could destroy Thomas completely, or destroy her if she played it wrong. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Nothing illegal, simply information sharing. My associates need to know Thomas's movements, his plans regarding the Brooks family. In return, you ensure your husband learns that some problems can't be solved with money and influence." "And what happens to Elena and Noah?" Marcus's smile was arctic. "That depends entirely on how cooperative they prove to be." Madeline stared into her champagne, watching the bubbles rise and burst. 20 years of being the perfect political wife, of smiling at charity galas while Thomas built his empire, of pretending their marriage was anything more than a business arrangement. Now she finally had the power to remind him who he'd really married. "I'll need guarantees," she said finally. "Whatever happens, it can't be traced back to me. Naturally, we're very discreet, and I want Thomas to know it was me. When it's over, I want him to understand the price of making me irrelevant." Marcus stood, straightening his jacket. "Mrs. Grayson, I think this is the beginning of a very productive partnership." 300 miles away, Thomas's phone rang as he paced his hotel room in Albuquerque. Elena's name on the caller ID made his heart skip. "Elena, are you safe?" "For now." Her voice was tight with stress. "Thomas, Travis Doyle found us. He's forcing us to make one more run. Phoenix to Juarez tomorrow night, if we refuse." "Where are you now?" "Flagstaff truck stop. Your security people are watching." "But Thomas, this is bigger than we thought. Doyle has serious backing, serious muscle. Your intervention yesterday put us all in danger." Thomas felt the weight of 25 years of mistakes crushing down on him. Every decision he'd made to protect them had only made things worse. "Elena, I'm going to get you out of this, both of you." "How?" "The FBI raids are happening tomorrow morning, but Doyle's not stupid. He's moving his operation, using us as a distraction. We're disposable to him." Before Thomas could respond, Noah's voice came on the line. "Thomas, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." "Of course. Yesterday, when you got us out of that roadblock, what exactly did you have to promise? What did you trade to keep us out of prison?" Thomas hesitated, the implications of the question hitting him like a physical blow. "I called in some favors, made some political contributions to ensure the right people would listen. That's not what I'm asking." Noah's voice was steady but urgent. "I've been thinking about this all day. Drug traffickers don't just walk away from losing 50 kilos of product. Someone had to compensate them for that loss, or guarantee future cooperation. What did you promise, Thomas? The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Thomas closed his eyes, knowing his answer would destroy any chance of a relationship with his son. I guaranteed them that you would complete one final run. I told them I would ensure your cooperation in exchange for your safety. Jesus Christ. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Thomas, you traded us to the very people we're trying to escape. I had no choice. If I hadn't made that deal, you'd both be in federal custody right now, facing life sentences, at least this way. This way we're drug mules with a death sentence hanging over us. Noah interrupted. Thomas, don't you understand? There is no final run. Once we cross that border with whatever they're shipping, we become permanent assets or permanent problems. Either way, we never come home. The truth of his son's words hit Thomas like a sledgehammer. In trying to save them, he'd condemned them to exactly the fate he'd been trying to prevent. Noah, I swear to you, I will find a way to fix this. No. Noah's voice was firm. You've done enough. Mom and I are going to handle this ourselves. Son, please. Don't call me son. A son is someone you raise, someone you protect, someone you don't trade like a commodity to save your own conscience. The line went dead, leaving Thomas staring at his phone in the silence of his hotel room. Outside, the city lights of Albuquerque sparkled like fallen stars, beautiful and unreachable. At the truck stop, Elena and Noah sat in their cab, the weight of their situation settling around them like a burial shroud. The betrayal by Thomas hurt more than Elena had expected. She'd allowed herself to hope, to believe that maybe the scared boy she'd loved had grown into a man worthy of their son. We can't trust him, Noah said quietly. Whatever his intentions, he's making deals that put us in more danger. I know. Elena's voice was hollow. So what do? We run the shipment to Juarez like Doyle wants, but we don't come back. Elena studied her son's profile in the dashboard lights. 25 years of protecting him, of building a life from nothing, of being both mother and father, and now they were planning to become permanent fugitives. Noah, if we disappear in Mexico, we can never come back. Never. Mom, if we don't disappear, we might not live to worry about coming back. In the distance, the lights of Thomas's surveillance team were barely visible. Professional watchers, paid to protect them from dangers that their protector himself had created. Elena's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mrs. Brooks, this is Agent Martinez. FBI, we need to talk. Your lives may depend on it. She showed the message to Noah, who read it twice before looking up at her. What do you think? I think, Elena said slowly, that we've run out of people to trust except each other. And the FBI. Elena stared at the message, weighing 25 years of hard-earned cynicism against the rapidly narrowing options for survival. The FBI wants to use us to catch Doyle. Thomas wants to save us by sacrificing us. Doyle wants to use us until we become liabilities. So we choose the devil that might actually let us live. We choose the devil that needs us alive to get what they want. Elena typed a response. When and where? The answer came immediately. 1 hour, Denny's on Route 66, come alone. Noah shook his head. We go together or not at all. Elena looked at her son, Thomas's son, and saw the same stubborn determination that had attracted her to his father 25 years ago. But where Thomas had ultimately chosen self-preservation, Noah was choosing loyalty. Together, she agreed, starting the engine. Whatever happens, we face it together. As they pulled out of the truck stop, neither of them noticed the black sedan that had been watching from the shadows, or the way it began following them at a careful distance. The Denny's on Route 66 squatted like a tired sentinel against the neon-washed highway, its parking lot scattered with the vehicles of late-night travelers and insomniacs. Elena pulled the Peterbilt into the back section reserved for commercial vehicles, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. Agent Sarah Martinez sat in a corner booth, her FBI credentials clearly visible on the table as a signal. She was younger than Elena had expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes that missed nothing, and the kind of controlled tension that came from years of dangerous work. Mrs. Brooks, Noah. She gestured for them to sit across from her. Thank you for coming. We didn't have much choice, Elena replied, sliding into the booth while Noah remained standing, his distrust evident. "Actually, you do. That's why I wanted to meet." Martinez opened a tablet, showing them surveillance photos of the Iron Trail compound. "Tomorrow at dawn, we're executing coordinated raids on 17 locations across 4 states. Iron Trail logistics is finished." Noah finally sat down, his attention focused on the screen. "Where does that leave us?" "That depends on what you're willing to tell us about Travis Doyle's operation and whether you're willing to testify." Elena felt a familiar knot of anxiety in her stomach. In exchange for what? Witness protection? New identities? "We disappear forever." "Not necessarily. Doyle's organization is extensive, but you two were unwitting participants. With your cooperation, we can probably arrange immunity and let you rebuild your lives." "Probably." Noah's voice was sharp. "Agent Martinez, with respect, our lives are on the line here. We need guarantees." "Not probably." Before Martinez could respond, her phone buzzed urgently. She glanced at the screen and her expression darkened. "We have a problem. One of our surveillance teams just reported unusual activity at the Iron Trail compound. Doyle's moving up his timeline." Elena's blood ran cold. "What kind of activity?" "Armed vehicles, multiple personnel arriving. It looks like he's preparing for something big." Martinez studied them carefully. "Did either of you tell anyone about this meeting?" "Only Thomas Grayson," Noah said. "But he wouldn't—" "Thomas Grayson." Martinez's voice sharpened. "The real estate developer. How is he involved in this?" Elena and Noah exchanged glances. The family connection wasn't something they'd planned to share, but circumstances were spiraling beyond their control. "He's my father," Noah said simply. "He's been trying to help us." Martinez stared at them both, processing this new information. "Help you how?" "He's the one who got us released from the roadblock yesterday," Elena explained. "He has contacts, resources." "Jesus Christ." Martinez rubbed her temples. "Mrs. Brooks, do you understand what you're telling me? Thomas Grayson has been interfering with a federal investigation. If he's compromised our operation." Her phone rang, cutting off the conversation. Martinez answered on the first ring, her face growing paler with each word from the caller. "When? How many?" She listened for another moment, then hung up. "We need to move, now." "What's wrong?" Elena demanded. "Noah's been taken." Elena's world tilted sideways. "What are you talking about? He's right here." Martinez showed them her phone screen, a surveillance video from 30 minutes ago showing Noah's truck being surrounded by armed men at a rest stop 20 miles away. The figure being forced into a black SUV was unmistakably Noah. "That's impossible," Noah said, staring at his own apparent kidnapping. "I'm sitting right here." "Which means they took the wrong person," Martinez said grimly. "Someone who looks enough like you to fool them from a distance." Elena felt ice form in her veins as the truth hit her. "They took someone else, someone who was following us." Martinez was already on her radio, coordinating with her team. "All units, we have a confirmed kidnapping. Subject is not the intended target. Repeat, wrong victim taken." Elena's phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. Martinez gestured for her to answer, quickly activating a recording app. "Elena Brooks." The voice was Travis Doyle, but there was something different about his usual smooth tone, an edge of desperation. "What do you want, Travis?" "I want what you stole from me. The product from yesterday's shipment. You and your boy have 36 hours to deliver 50 kilos of pure product to the coordinates I'm about to send you, or your son starts losing pieces." Elena looked at the real Noah sitting beside her, her mind racing. "Travis, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play games with me, Elena. My people saw your boy get snatched by whoever's been protecting you, but I've got him now, and unless you want to receive his fingers in the mail, you'll do exactly what I say." The line went dead, leaving Elena staring at her phone in confusion. Travis believed he had Noah, but Noah was sitting right beside her, which meant someone else, someone who looked like her son, was in mortal danger because of their situation. "Agent Martinez," Noah said quietly. "Who else has been watching us?" Martinez was already working her phone, pulling up surveillance reports. "According to our intel, Thomas Grayson had a private security team monitoring your movements. Young male, mid-20s, similar build to Noah." Elena felt sick. "Thomas's people were protecting us. And now one of them is going to die because Travis thinks he's my son. Not if we move fast, Martinez said. Doyle won't hurt his hostage until the deadline passes. That gives us time to locate him and mount a rescue. Or, Noah said slowly, it gives us time to give Doyle what he really wants, which is me, the real me. Noah's voice was steady, but Elena could see the fear in his eyes. If we can make the exchange, the innocent man for me, at least we save someone who doesn't deserve to die for our mistakes. Absolutely not, Elena said firmly. I'm not trading my son for anyone. Mom, an innocent person is going to be tortured and killed because he looks like me. How is that acceptable? Martinez watched the family drama unfold with professional detachment. There might be another way. Noah, you said Thomas Grayson is your father. What kind of resources does he have access to? Money, political connections, private security, Elena answered. But he's also the reason we're in this mess. He made deals with these people. Then maybe it's time he honored those deals properly. Martinez stood up. Her decision made. Mrs. Brooks, I need you to call Thomas Grayson. Tell him his son is ready to negotiate directly. Elena stared at the agent. You want us to use Noah as bait. I want to give Doyle what he thinks he wants while we coordinate a rescue operation. But it only works if we can control the when and where of the exchange. Noah was already reaching for Elena's phone. Do it, Mom. Call Thomas. Noah, an innocent man is going to die because of me, because of who my father is, because of the choices all of us have made. I can't live with that. He looked directly into Elena's eyes. You raised me to do the right thing, even when it's dangerous. This is the right thing. Elena felt 25 years of protective instincts warring with the knowledge that her son was right. The man Travis had taken was guilty of nothing more than doing his job, and he was going to pay with his life for resembling Noah. If we do this, she said finally, we do it together. I'm not losing you again, and I'm not letting you face this alone. Elena, Martinez began. No negotiation on that point. If Noah goes in, I go with him. We're a package deal. Martinez nodded slowly. All right, but we do this my way, with full FBI support and backup. One wrong move and this whole operation falls apart. Elena dialed Thomas's number with shaking fingers. After everything that had happened, after all the betrayals and mistakes, they were about to trust him with their lives one more time. Thomas, she said when he answered, we need to talk. Someone's life depends on it. Elena, what's wrong? Travis Doyle has kidnapped one of your security people. Thinking it was Noah. We have 36 hours to arrange an exchange. Elena looked at her son, seeing Thomas's determination reflected in his young face. Noah wants to make the trade himself. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for an eternity before Thomas's voice came back. Rough with emotion. Over my dead body. The abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Phoenix had become an unlikely command center, its concrete walls echoing with the controlled chaos of federal agents preparing for the most complex operation of their careers. Thomas arrived within 2 hours of Elena's call, his private jet having broken several FAA regulations to get him there in time. Agent Martinez watched him stride through the makeshift operations center, noting how he moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to commanding rooms full of powerful people. But there was something else in his bearing now, a desperation that money couldn't buy and influence couldn't fix. Mr. Grayson. Martinez extended her hand. Agent Sarah Martinez, FBI, we need to talk. Thomas barely acknowledged the introduction, his eyes scanning the room until they found Elena and Noah huddled over surveillance photos at a corner table. The sight of them working together, supporting each other through the crisis he'd helped create, hit him like a physical blow. How bad is it? He asked Martinez, though his eyes never left his family. Bad, Travis Doyle has one of your security agents. Jake Morrison, 26 years old, former Marine. Doyle thinks he has your son, which means Morrison is being tortured for information he doesn't have. Thomas felt bile rise in his throat. Jake Morrison was a good kid, the son of a family friend, working his way through law school by providing executive protection. Now he was paying the price for Thomas's desperate attempts to protect a family he'd abandoned 25 years ago. What do you need from me? Thomas asked. Everything. Financial records, communication logs, details about every deal you made to protect Elena and Noah. We need to understand the full scope of Doyle's operation. and how deep your involvement goes. Elena looked up from the surveillance photos, her dark eyes meeting Thomas's across the room. For a moment, 25 years collapsed and he was looking at the woman he'd fallen in love with in college. But this Elena was harder, tempered by decades of struggle and disappointment. She stood and walked over to them, her movements careful and controlled. "Thomas, we need to know exactly what promises you made to keep us out of prison." "Elena, no more lies, no more half-truths. A man is going to die because of decisions you made. We need to know what we're really dealing with." Thomas looked around the room full of federal agents, knowing that anything he said could be used against him. But Jake Morrison's life hung in the balance, and his son was talking about walking into a trap to save a stranger. "I guaranteed them compensation for the lost product," he said quietly. 50 kilos of pure cocaine, street value approximately $3 million, plus assurance that you would complete one final run to establish that you weren't cooperating with law enforcement. Martinez whistled low. "Jesus Christ, Grayson. You basically signed them up for a suicide mission." "I was trying to buy time, to find a way to get them out safely, by promising to deliver them to the very people they were trying to escape." Noah's voice cut across the room like a blade. He'd been listening from the corner, and now he approached with the same determined stride Thomas recognized from looking in mirrors. "Son, I know how this looks. Stop calling me that." Noah's voice was quiet but firm. "You don't get to claim that relationship when it's convenient. You've made 3 major decisions about my life, and every single one has put me in more danger." The accusation hung in the air between them, and Thomas couldn't deny its truth. First, abandoning Elena when she was pregnant. Second, interfering with the roadblock that had marked them as federal assets. Third, making deals that had painted targets on their backs. "You're right," Thomas said simply. "Every choice I've made has been selfish, short-sighted, or both. But I'm here now, and I want to fix this." "How?" Elena asked. "How do you fix a situation where an innocent man dies unless we hand over your son to drug traffickers?" Thomas studied the surveillance photos spread across the table, his business mind working through the logistics. "We give Doyle what he wants, but not the way he expects." "Meaning?" Martinez asked. "Doyle wants 3 things. His lost product replaced, assurance that Elena and Noah won't testify against him, and revenge for the disruption to his operation. We can give him the first 2 without sacrificing Noah." Noah shook his head. "Thomas, there's no scenario where Doyle lets any of us walk away alive. We know too much. We've caused too much trouble. The only question is how many people die." Elena moved closer to Thomas, and for the first time since their reunion, she studied his face without anger clouding her judgment. The years had been kind to him physically, but she could see the weight of regret in his eyes, the way guilt had carved lines around his mouth. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "I'm thinking that maybe it's time I stopped trying to buy my way out of consequences." Thomas looked directly at Noah. "Doyle has Jake Morrison because of choices I made. The FBI can't move against him without risking Morrison's life. But I can." "Thomas, no." Elena's voice was sharp with alarm. "You can't seriously be thinking about trading yourself for Morrison. Why not? I'm the one who created this mess. I'm the one with the resources Doyle really wants. And I'm the one who spent 25 years running from responsibility." Martinez stepped forward. "Mr. Grayson, we can't authorize civilian involvement in a rescue operation. You're not authorizing anything. I'm a private citizen making a private decision." Thomas's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to making final calls. "Doyle wants leverage over me. Let him have it. But not through my son." Elena felt something shift in her chest, a crack in the wall of resentment she'd built over the decades. This was the man she'd fallen in love with in college, someone willing to take risks for the people he cared about. The scared boy who'd run from responsibility was finally becoming the man she'd hoped he could be. "What exactly are you proposing?" Noah asked. "I call Doyle directly. Tell him I know he has the wrong person, but that I'm willing to make a deal. Full compensation for his losses, plus a significant bonus in exchange for Morrison's release and safe passage for you and your mother." "And what happens to you in this scenario?" Elena asked. Thomas smiled, and for a moment she saw the boy she'd loved 25 years ago. "I face the consequences of my choices." Finally, Noah studied his father's face, seeing something he'd never expected. Genuine courage. "Thomas, If you do this, there's no guarantee you'll survive. Doyle doesn't exactly have a reputation for honoring agreements. Maybe not, but at least Jake Morrison goes home to his family, and you and your mother get the chance to build the life you deserve. Elena felt tears threatening for the first time in years. Thomas, you can't. Elena, for 25 years I've been haunted by the moment I chose my future over our love. I chose safety over courage, money over family. I can't undo those choices, but I can make sure they don't define the rest of our lives. Martinez watched the family dynamics with professional fascination. Mr. Grayson, even if we agreed to this plan, Doyle would want proof that you're acting in good faith. He'd want collateral. He'll have it. I'm prepared to transfer $5 million to an escrow account as a show of good faith, more than enough to compensate for his losses and guarantee his attention. Noah looked at his mother. Seeing his own conflicted emotions reflected in her face, Thomas was offering to sacrifice himself for a stranger's life and their freedom. It was either the most noble gesture they'd ever witnessed, or the most elaborate suicide mission in history. There has to be another way, Elena said finally. Maybe there is, Thomas replied. But this is the only way that guarantees Morrison survives and gives you both a real chance at freedom. Outside the warehouse, the desert sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Time was running out for Jake Morrison, and they all knew it. If we do this, Noah said slowly, we do it together, all of us. Thomas started to protest, but Elena cut him off. Noah's right. We've been running separately for 25 years. Maybe it's time we face the consequences together. The abandoned mining facility in the Sonoran Desert stood like a monument to forgotten ambitions, its rusted equipment and crumbling structures casting long shadows in the pre-dawn darkness. Thomas sat in the passenger seat of an unmarked FBI van, watching the thermal imaging display that showed at least 12 armed figures positioned throughout the complex. Last chance to reconsider, Agent Martinez said through his earpiece. Once you're inside, we can't guarantee extraction. Thomas touched the wire taped to his chest, knowing that every word would be recorded, but that Elena and Noah were listening from the command vehicle half a mile away. I understand the risks. The plan was dangerously simple. Thomas would approach under the pretense of negotiating Jake Morrison's release, carrying a briefcase with proof of the $5 million transfer. FBI sniper teams were positioned on the surrounding ridges, but their primary objective was intelligence gathering, not rescue. If things went wrong, Thomas was on his own. Thomas, Elena's voice crackled through his earpiece, tight with emotion. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. He stepped out of the van, the desert air cold against his skin. Elena, if I don't make it out, you're going to make it out. We're going to make it out. All of us. Thomas smiled in the darkness, drawing strength from the determination in her voice. I love you, Elena. I've loved you for 25 years, and I'll love you for whatever time I have left. Don't you dare say goodbye to me, Thomas Grayson. This isn't how our story ends. Noah's voice joined the conversation. Thomas, that man in there, Morrison, he's somebody's son too. Bring him home. I will, Thomas promised, starting his walk toward the mining facility. I'll bring him home. The compound was a maze of corrugated metal buildings and rusted machinery, perfect for an ambush. Thomas forced himself to walk steadily, the briefcase heavy in his hand, knowing that sniper scopes were tracking his every step from multiple directions. Travis Doyle emerged from the largest building, flanked by 2 armed men. Even in the dim lighting, Thomas could see the barely controlled rage on the drug lord's face. The past 24 hours had not been kind to Travis's operation. FBI raids had hit 17 locations simultaneously, decimating his organization. Thomas Grayson, Travis called out, his voice echoing off the metal walls. The billionaire philanthropist himself, come to save the day. I came to make a deal, Thomas replied, stopping 20 feet away. You have something I want. I have something you need. What I need is for the past week to never have happened. Can your money buy me that? No, but it can buy you a new start somewhere far from here. Travis laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know what your interference cost me? $50 million in lost product, 18 months of careful planning, and half my organization sitting in federal custody. You think $5 million fixes that? I think 5 million gets you to whatever country doesn't have an extradition treaty with the United States, which is more than you'll have if you kill me here. Travis studied Thomas with predatory interest. You know, I've been wondering what could make a man as smart as you take such stupid risks. Then I found out about the boy. Thomas felt ice form in his stomach. What boy? Noah Brooks, your son. Amazing how genetics work, isn't it? Kid's the spitting image of his daddy. Travis gestured toward one of the buildings. Bring him out. 2 men emerged from the shadows, dragging a figure between them. Thomas's heart lurched as he recognized Jake Morrison. Beaten, bloodied, but still alive. The young man's eyes met Thomas's, and Thomas saw recognition and desperate hope. Here's the thing about family, Grayson, Travis continued. Makes you predictable, makes you weak. I knew if I had something that looked like your boy, you'd come running. Morrison's not my son. He's an employee. Maybe, but you're here, aren't you? Travis pulled out a pistol, pressing it against Morrison's temple, which means he's valuable enough to you to risk everything. In the command vehicle, Elena watched the thermal display with growing horror. Martinez, you have to do something. He's going to kill them both. Not yet. We need Doyle to incriminate himself completely before we move. To hell with your case, Noah said, reaching for the van door. That's my father out there. Elena grabbed his arm. Noah, no. This is what Thomas wanted, for us to stay safe while he handled this. Mom, I can't watch him die for me. I can't live with that. Through the earpiece, they heard Thomas speaking with steady calm. Travis, killing Morrison accomplishes nothing. He doesn't know anything about your operation. I'm the one you want. Oh, I want you. All right, see, the FBI thinks they've won, but they've only gotten the expendable parts of my organization. The real operation, the real money, that's all protected. Offshore accounts, shell companies, political connections. Just like yours. Thomas felt understanding dawn. You want my network, my contacts? Smart man. 5 million is pocket change to someone like you, but your political connections, your financial infrastructure, that's worth hundreds of millions. And if I refuse, Travis smiled, cocking the hammer on his pistol, then young Morrison here gets to meet his maker, and we have a conversation with your real son. Because make no mistake, Grayson, I know exactly where Noah and Elena are right now. The threat hung in the desert air like poison. Thomas realized with crystal clarity that there had never been any possibility of negotiation. Travis intended to kill Morrison regardless, then use Thomas's resources to rebuild his empire while holding Elena and Noah as permanent leverage. Martinez, Thomas whispered, knowing the FBI was listening. He knows where they are. Move Elena and Noah now. Thomas? We can't. Elena's voice was cut off as Thomas reached up and yanked out his earpiece, crushing it under his heel. Touching, Travis observed. Really, but you see, I've been planning this conversation since yesterday, right about now. My associates are visiting a certain FBI command post. Amazing how easy it is to track federal vehicles when you have the right equipment. Thomas felt the world collapse around him. Every choice he'd made, every attempt to protect his family had led to this moment. Travis had outplayed them all. What do you want? Thomas asked. Everything. Complete access to your financial network, introduction to your political contacts, and a partnership that ensures my business continues under your protection. Travis's smile was arctic. Oh, and your son joins my organization. Insurance that you'll honor our agreement. Never. Then Mr. Morrison dies, right now. Travis began to squeeze the trigger. Wait. Thomas dropped the briefcase and raised his hands. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't hurt him. But as Travis's attention focused on Thomas's surrender, neither man noticed Morrison's subtle movement. The young Marine had been working at his bonds throughout the conversation, and 20 years of military training kicked in as he broke free and dove toward the nearest cover. The sudden movement startled Travis. Causing his shot to go wide, Morrison rolled behind a concrete barrier as Thomas lunged forward, tackling Travis around the waist. The 2 men went down hard, fighting for control of the weapon. Federal agents. Agent Martinez's voice boomed through loudspeakers as tactical teams swarmed the compound. Drop your weapons. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions as Travis's men engaged the FBI assault teams. Thomas and Travis rolled across the ground, both men desperately grappling for the pistol. Travis was younger and stronger, but Thomas fought with the fury of a man protecting his family. The gun discharged between them, the muzzle flash lighting up their faces in the darkness. For a moment, neither man moved. Then Travis's grip loosened, and he slumped backward, blood spreading across his chest. Thomas staggered to his feet, looking down at the man who had threatened everything he held dear. Around him, the gunfight was ending as FBI agents secured the compound. Morrison was being treated by paramedics, battered but alive. Thomas. Elena's voice cut through the chaos as she ran toward him. Noah close behind. "I told them to keep you safe," Thomas said as she reached him. "We don't take orders from you," she replied, checking him for injuries. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, Morrison." "He'll live," Noah reported, returning from the ambulance. "Couple of broken ribs, some cuts and bruises, but he'll be okay." Thomas looked at his son, really looked at him, and saw not just his own features, but Elena's strength, her courage, her refusal to abandon the people she cared about. "Noah, I know," Noah said simply. "I know what you did tonight, what you were willing to do. It doesn't make up for 25 years. "No," Noah agreed, "but it's a start." Elena stood between them, looking at the two men who shared her heart in different ways. "So what happens now?" Thomas gazed out over the desert, where the first hints of dawn were painting the horizon in shades of gold and pink. "Now we go home, all of us, and we figure out how to be a family." 3 months later, Phoenix General Hospital had become an unlikely sanctuary for the Grayson family. Thomas's private room on the cardiac wing overlooked the desert mountains, where spring wildflowers painted the landscape in brilliant colors. The bullet that had grazed his chest during the struggle with Travis Doyle had required surgery. But it was the stress-induced heart episode 2 weeks later that had truly frightened them all. Elena sat in the chair beside his bed, reading aloud from a trucking industry magazine, while Thomas pretended to doze. It had become their daily ritual. She would arrive each morning with coffee and whatever reading material struck her fancy, and they would spend the day talking about everything except the 25 years they'd lost. "Listen to this," Elena said, her voice carrying a hint of amusement. "New federal regulations require enhanced driver training for hazardous materials transport. I think we've had enough hazardous materials to last a lifetime." Thomas opened his eyes, smiling at the sight of her. The harsh fluorescent lighting couldn't diminish her natural beauty, and the past 3 months had softened some of the hard edges that years of struggle had carved into her features. "Any word from Agent Martinez about the trial?" he asked. "Jury selection starts next week. She says our testimony should be enough to put away the surviving members of Travis's organization for a very long time." Elena set down the magazine and moved closer to his bed. "Thomas, are you sure you're ready for this? The media attention is going to be intense. Let them write their stories. After 25 years of living a lie, I'm done hiding from the truth." The divorce proceedings with Madeline had been swift and brutal. Her cooperation with Travis Doyle in exchange for information about Thomas's movements had shocked even their mutual attorneys. The prenuptial agreement she'd insisted on years ago now worked against her, and she would leave the marriage with a modest settlement and her reputation in ruins. "Mom, you're going to wear a hole in that chair." Noah's voice came from the doorway. He entered carrying a stack of papers and wearing the kind of smile that usually meant he'd been making plans. At 25, Noah had thrown himself into learning about his father's business empire with the same intensity he'd once applied to truck maintenance schedules. Thomas watched his son with a mixture of pride and amazement. Noah had inherited Elena's practical intelligence and work ethic, combined with Thomas's strategic thinking and natural leadership abilities. "What's that stack of papers?" Thomas asked, though he suspected he already knew. "The final feasibility study for the Brooks Transportation Foundation." Noah pulled up a chair, spreading documents across the bedside table. "Mom, you need to see this." Elena leaned forward, studying the financial projections and operational plans. 6 weeks ago, Noah had approached them with an ambitious proposal: use Thomas's resources and Elena's industry experience to create a foundation that would help independent truckers transition to legitimate, profitable careers. "The numbers look good," she admitted. "But Noah, this is a massive undertaking. We're talking about hundreds of drivers who've been working for questionable outfits because they had no other choice. "Which is exactly why we need to do this," Noah replied. "Mom, you've spent 3 years working for Iron Trail because the legitimate companies couldn't match their pay. How many other drivers are in the same situation? How many families are one bad decision away from ending up where we were?" Thomas studied the business plan with the analytical mind that had built his empire. The foundation structure protects us from liability while allowing maximum flexibility in how we help people. The educational component gives drivers legitimate credentials they can use anywhere, and the financing program gets them into their own rigs without dealing with loan sharks or questionable employers. Elena finished. "It's brilliant, but it's also going to cost millions." "I have millions," Thomas said simply. "What I don't have is knowledge of the industry or credibility with the drivers who need help. That's what you bring to this partnership." Elena looked between father and son, seeing the family resemblance in more than just their physical features. Both men had the same stubborn determination when they believed in something, the same willingness to take calculated risks for the right cause. "There's something else," Noah said, pulling out a different set of documents. "I've been accepted to Arizona State's MBA program. Part-time, so I can work on the foundation while I'm studying." "Noah, that's wonderful," Elena said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you. Actually, I was hoping you might consider going back to school too," Noah continued. "ASU has an excellent business management program. And with your experience," Elena laughed, shaking her head. "I'm 44 years old. I think my college days are behind me." "Says who?" Thomas asked. "Elena, you've been running a successful independent trucking operation for years. You've managed logistics, maintained equipment, handled finances. You're already doing what they teach in business school. You just don't have the piece of paper that says you know how to do it. Besides," Noah added with a grin, "someone needs to keep an eye on Thomas's spending. I've seen his idea of a modest office space." Elena felt something she hadn't experienced in decades, the possibility of dreams she'd thought were forever out of reach. College had been interrupted by pregnancy and financial necessity. The past 25 years had been about survival, not growth. But now, with Thomas's support and Noah's encouragement, maybe it wasn't too late to become the person she'd always wanted to be. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "Think about what?" Dr. Sarah Chen entered the room, carrying Thomas's discharge papers. "Mr. Grayson, your heart function is back to normal, and the surgical site has healed beautifully. You're cleared for release." Thomas sat up eagerly. "Does that mean I can finally get out of this place?" "It means you can go home, with strict instructions about diet, exercise, and stress management. And Mr. Grayson," Dr. Chen fixed him with a stern look, "whatever you've been doing for the past 3 months, keep doing it. Your recovery has been remarkable." After Dr. Chen left, Elena helped Thomas gather his belongings while Noah loaded the car. It was a domestic scene that would have been unimaginable 6 months ago, a family preparing to go home together. "Elena," Thomas said as she folded his clothes, "there's something I need to ask you." She looked up, noting the nervousness in his voice. "What is it?" Thomas reached into the bedside table drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. Elena's breath caught as he opened it, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. 25 years ago, I was too much of a coward to ask you this question. I chose security over love, status over family, and I've regretted it every day since. Thomas's voice was steady but emotional. "Elena Brooks, will you marry me? Will you give me the chance to spend the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of the family we created?" Elena stared at the ring, then at the man holding it. This wasn't the scared boy who'd broken her heart in college, or the desperate billionaire who'd tried to buy his way back into their lives. This was someone who'd learned that real strength came from vulnerability, that true wealth came from the people you loved. "Thomas," she said softly, "are you sure? Because if I say yes, you're not just getting a wife, you're getting a partner who's going to challenge you, who's going to make sure you never forget where you came from, or what really matters." "I'm counting on it." Elena looked toward the hallway where Noah was waiting with the car, then back at Thomas. "In that case, yes, but we're doing this right this time. No family pressure, no social expectations, just us choosing each other." Thomas slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then pulled her close for a kiss that tasted like forgiveness and possibility. Noah appeared in the doorway, took one look at them, and grinned. "About time. Do you know how long I've been waiting to have a real family?" 25 years, Elena and Thomas said simultaneously, then laughed at their synchronicity as they left the hospital together. Walking into the Arizona sunshine, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The road had been long and often painful, marked by mistakes and missed opportunities, but it had also led them here, to this second chance at happiness. "So what happens now?" Noah asked as they reached the car. Thomas looked at his son, then at the woman who'd given him everything and asked for nothing in return. "Now we go home and figure out how to build the life we should have had all along. Together," Elena added, taking both their hands. "Together," they agreed. And for the first time in 25 years, the word felt like a promise they could keep.